Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Tennis Weekly with Joel, Kim, and Chris. On today's Roland Garros Day 2 catch-up,
Monfils and Wawrinka wave goodbye to Paris.
Svitolina survives scare against Bondar.
And Casper Ruud overcomes heatstroke to book his spot in round two.
Kim, today is the 25th of May, and we are here to catch up on Roland Garros Day 2 at Tennis Weekly HQ. On today's episode, we are going to be chatting Parisian farewells to some legends as Gael Monfils and Stan the Man Wawrinka departed after one last dance in Paris. We're also going to be talking Casper Ruud coming through heat stroke, a nice win for Andrey Rublev as he repelled Buse of Peru, Swiatek and Rybakina kicking off with easy victories, Elina Svitolina surviving by the skin of her teeth, and we also had Katie Boulter scraping through as well. We're going to be getting into all the women's action in the second half, as well as looking ahead to day 3 with the schedule out. Jannik Sinner and Aryna Sabalenka are starting off their campaigns. But Kim, this is your first daily episode at Tennis Weekly HQ. And I'm actually a little bit surprised because whilst I have once again got the fan in full blast on screen as well, I'm recording. You seem to be in a jumper.
Yeah, we're quite different, aren't we, Joel? You're like sweating buckets in like a sports shirt
Yes.
with your fan. I think
I've
you've
got an Andy
maybe
Murray.
just wet your hair as well.
I've got like an
cool
Andy
off.
Murray kind of Davis Cup number that I believe is actually from one of our listeners, Liz. So shout out to Liz. But it's from an era, a bygone era when Aegon were doing things
Yeah.
with British tennis.
Those are the days. Yeah, I am a little bit too warm, I would say, in my jumper. But my where I live, we don't really like we'd be well designed to be in the middle of the Med because the way the flat is, the windows, etc. Like we don't really get the heat, so it's
Okay.
actually really nice and cool. So
Oh,
I don't
I am
want to rub that
jealous.
in.
I am
But
jealous. Yes, listeners,
but it
I am in the eaves of a building, and
yes, and the heat has risen.
it is like I am at Arthur Ashe in
Oh.
September.
Yeah. I mean, conversely,
Yes.
I struggle in the winter when it's a bit too cold sometimes. And you're like, I'll probably be recording the podcast with like a hot water bottle and a blanket. So right when it's hot weather, I'm like, oh, it's nice and cool. But yeah, I hope you get I think you've ordered an aircon unit though, is that
I
right?
have.
So you're going to the
So
next level
yes.
relief, hopefully, that will bring
Exactly.
you.
We'll have to keep listeners updated. Hopefully, I can be a bit cooler and more collected with episodes later on in our daily series. But we are coming off quite an emotional matchup because we've just had the ending and a nice video tribute for Gael Monfils.
Yeah, Rafa was first one on the video, so that was nice to see. But yeah, it was really, really like emotional scenes. He was doing obviously a nice speech at the end of his match against Hugo Gaston. So we're recording prior to that, and I mean, it's a shame Monfils faded so much in that final set because I thought, oh, he could bit of a comeback here. But yeah,
Mm.
really kind of not the way he wanted to go out, but I think overall it's a tone of gratitude. I think for a fantastic career and at home with all the home fans and playing a fellow Frenchman as well. He gave the crowd 5 sets of tennis and they got what they wanted to see. It wasn't a Monfils classic, but they got the man,
Mm.
they got the speech, they got the farewell.
Yeah, I think this match really does. I think sum up Gael Monfils. He's I think regardless of how physically fit he is, I think maybe the occasion got to him here a little bit. But regardless of any of that, he is a man who is always going to put on a show, and I think he puts on a show. He's more kind of spurred on to put on a show when he is kind of looking down and out. Maybe he's a set down, maybe he's 2 sets down. And I feel like this was the story of this match because at the start of it, I think Hugo Gaston was the one who was feeling inspired playing in front of a packed Philippe Chatrier in the nighttime. And I was kind of wondering, when's it all going to click for Gael Monfils? Maybe I would have liked to seen him bring in the crowd a little bit earlier, but he certainly got his spark the more the match went on. Perhaps he was buoyed by Gaston asking for the doctor, and took sets 3, sets 4, But as you say, yeah, he sort of just ran out of steam at the end. I mean, we can't really begrudge him that, given I think how long he has spent on the tour. But again, it was just such a great occasion in front of his home crowd, an all French affair. And yeah, entertaining to the last. I mean, one of my favorite points is when they just kind of casually threw some both like back-to-back tweeners between both of them. It was almost feeling like an exhibition. And
Mm.
again, I think that's something I would talk about with Gael Monfils is with his matches, he did bring that exhibition feel that, are not. I don't think a lot of players you can say that about and say, but at the same time, they're still very serious, very competitive, very driven. But he always had that sort of air of unpredictability to him.
Yeah, he definitely played and plays with flair because we don't know. He hasn't really said whether he's going to play out the rest of the year. I think
Mm.
hopefully we will see more of him before he does finally hang up his rackets. But um, yeah, that flair, that entertainment factor. I mean, I think my overriding memory of him would just be probably these night sessions at Roland Garros in more recent years has been some real crackers. But before that, even just those matches that would go on and then they'd have to stop for the bad light at like 9 p.m. And it just, and other slams as well. It just always brings it. And it's a shame that he was never able to like reach a Grand Slam final or pick up a slam. But the era that he's been competing in, and he has had some real battles at the top and just. But I think
Mm.
above all though, it's just I don't know a single person that dislikes watching him play. I've only ever heard like good
Mm.
things really. Yeah, he'll definitely be sorely missed from the tour. But do you have a favorite memory, Joel, of Monfils?
Do I have a favorite? I I just think it's more for me. Maybe there's not necessarily like a one standout moment. I think for me it's more he just wears his heart on his sleeve with every match. Um, and you always know you're going to get something entertainment, some sort of entertainment with him. I think with a lot of top players, round one and round two can literally just be a paragraph or a footnote. But I feel like there's always some sort of entertainment value with a Gael Monfils match, whether that's a trick shot, whether that's him, just being his idiosyncratic self. So yeah, I think for me it's in all his maybe personality and his longevity. But Kim, what I wanted to ask you actually was, you did mention we don't actually know at the moment when Gael Monfils is going to retire. I mean, his ranking at the moment, I think, is down to outside the top 200. So it's actually going to be quite a struggle for him without wild cards to play events, big events anyway, for the rest of the year. Do you feel like actually this, with that in mind, this could and perhaps should have been the moment to hang up his racket and just completely retire?
I mean, possibly go out on a high with like your ceremony kind of after your match, and he did the Gale and Friends kind of exhibition sort of farewell before the tournament started. So in essence, had kind of like
Mm.
two farewells here. I mean, he could maybe stop at the Paris indoor. The Masters later in the season. That might be another ending, but it almost feels like you've had your main goodbye here. So that might just be kind of like doesn't it might that might be a bit of a damn squib. So I don't know. I think I'd like to see him at Wimbledon.
Mm.
Because he's entertained the British fans love him. We've had so many great matches of him there. I think I'd love to see him kind of get a wild card into Wimbledon and the Brits to organise something for him. A little word on court. But I don't know. What would you think would be wise, Joel? Do you think sort of stop while the not while the
I
going's good, but when you've
mm.
had your nice big moment on Chatrier?
I think he should retire now. I think he's had a great event. He's had a 5-set match in front of all of his friends and compatriots against Gaston, and I think it's a natural time for his career to come to an end. Being bageled by a player who hadn't won on the tour this season was 0-4. He hadn't actually won since Mets last year at the start of November, and I know that because I was there for it. So I think if there is a trigger or
Yeah.
something to tell someone, actually, this is the time to kind of stop, I think it's now. And I also think that we've had this lovely ceremony and lovely tribute from all the players, including Djokovic and Nadal. But we also had the Gael and Friends event beforehand. And there's actually a part of me that thinks, did we even need him playing the French Open proper? Did we need him to play this match against Gaston? Because, again, the first two sets, he looked really down and out at times. He was looking at his shoes. He was sort of hunched over. And, that is a credit, I think, to Gaston. He did push him around the court a lot. But I just kind of wondered as well, how much energy does this guy have left in the tank? And I think there is a part of it that's like, you never really know with Gael Monfils, and perhaps the scoreline suggests that because he was still able to push it to 5. But I think there is a part of me that wonders, I think they could have just finished his career at Gael and Friends, pre tournament. I think that was a lovely day. It was a lovely moment. Not anything else kind of going on. I think it would have set the tournament up beautifully. So there's a part of me that thinks actually it's a bit odd we actually had that event and he still kind of competed.
Did both.
Yeah, I would have. I felt like you would have something like that maybe like the year after, but maybe not.
Maybe
while he was still
maybe
playing.
maybe this will give Hugo Gaston the confidence boost that he needs to get some more wins on the tour, because we know that he can play a lot better. I still remember that match against Dominic Thiem in 2020 in the fourth round. Yes. That was a right cracker, and it's a shame that he's kind of lost his mojo. So perhaps this will reinvigorate him a little bit, being part of this moment of history, because he was just 4 years old when Monfils first played Roland Garros, which is
incredible.
Just goes to show the longevity of Monfils' career. And he actually only missed 10 Grand Slams in total, so he's there and thereabouts for the best part of 20 odd years, and 2 Grand Slam semi-finals, career high of 6. But I think, like we said before, the thing we'll remember him most isn't the numbers or the stats, are they?
Do you think he made the most? I mean, before we move on, do you think he made the most of his talent on the tennis court?
Well, is his talent entertainment rather than, trophy cabinet? Maybe he was put on, the tennis tour to primarily entertain rather than win big.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I think, he played the majority of his career in a really tough era with the big 3, big 4. We're going to get onto Stan Wawrinka as well. Yep. Then you add in players like Tomas Berdych, Marin Cilic as well.
Tough.
Very, very tough. And I would say even those players were more consistent than, someone like Gael Monfils. I think we all knew of his ability and we saw kind of those flashes of brilliance, but I wouldn't necessarily say consistency is a word we would define him by. And when in that regard, actually, I think something you can say is he still, regardless of all these talents that were around him, he still managed to carve out his own style and his own personality on the tour that, fans just naturally gravitated to. So I don't think it's necessarily a situation where, he compromised perhaps what he could have achieved to focus on being a bit of a highlight reel, bit of a show off. But at the same time, I do wonder, if he had got his head down and maybe wasn't such a creative maverick on the court, could he have pushed himself? But I mean, when you've got kind of Djokovic, Nadal, Murray in front of you, Federer, it was very, very tough. So I think he did the best I think he could, and carving out his own space, I think, is an achievement in itself.
Well, from one farewell to another, Joel, we did have Stan Wawrinka having his final Roland Garros match as well today. And he actually has already stated that he is going to be retiring at the Basel event in October. So we do have him for a bit longer, but this was his final match on the hallowed courts of Roland Garros, where of course he won the event in 2015. So he was out on Simone Mathieu against Jesper de Jong, lost in 4 sets, but had little ceremony and farewell after as well. And I mean, big fan of Stan, the Parisian crowd here, and I think they'll always remember that 2015 win. And I think the pair of shorts that he wore en route to that win as well.
Stan shorts. I mean, yeah. Well, I mean, we've had some incredible legends, who are very much associated with Paris for different reasons. Monfils as a home Frenchman, but Wawrinka, this is a surface that he excelled on, and he was, that run to becoming a French Open champion. I was looking back on it the other day. Truly incredible stuff. I mean, he beat Roger Federer in the quarterfinals. He defeated Tsonga in front of a baying French crowd in the semi-finals, and then up against Djokovic, who was in really kind of a monster in the prime at that moment, looking to complete the career slam. I think he was a very, very much an underdog, and I think again one of the things that you have to admire about Wawrinka was he was just so clutch in the big moments when it mattered. I mean, I'm a big Andy Murray fan, and he reached more Grand Slam finals than Stan Wawrinka. But Wawrinka, you have to give credit for him that he made it count, when he got there against the very best. He reached 4 finals, 3 Grand Slam titles. That is a very, very good return. And as an Andy Murray fan, I'm quite jealous of that because, I think for me, that's what we'll remember, his ability to match the very best. And of course, his beautiful single-handed backhand.
Absolutely. I think, he really maximized his career. I think no one necessarily predicted he would be a Grand Slam champion, let alone a 3-time Slam champion. And to win those slams, he had to beat Rafa, he had to beat Novak. He didn't, just get lucky in a final, and also winning the Olympic doubles gold as well.
So you don't think he got lucky at the Australian Open? Because
Rafa sounds like sour grapes. Yeah, Rafa hurt his back during the warm-up. I will say that much. But, fair enough. Stan still had to do a lot of the hard work. But yeah, first time Slam champion, age 28, just goes to show, it doesn't all come early. You think nowadays Alcaraz, Sinner, and it's just, but some people just take a bit longer to get there. And when they do, they may not win 20, but they give a lot of fans a lot of joy, and they really make it matter when it does. And yeah, stunning tennis at times.
He was also a bit of a personality as well. I'll always remember when he won in Paris. I think he was going through divorce at the time, and we had all these kind of love romance stories on the tour. I think that was
he dated Donna Vekic for a bit,
I think that was the era of Jem's life as well, beginning. But he just wrote on the TV camera, I think after his win against Djokovic, he said, "Divorce works." And I thought that was actually quite
Church
funny.
Are like, no, don't promote divorce.
Yes, I thought that was quite. He's been a personality, on the tour as well. So yeah, great to kind of see him. I mean, before we move on to the other tennis,
will we see him?
Because
at Wimbledon
again, his ranking, it could be that he gets into a main draw for Wimbledon and the US Open, but he might be relying on wild cards as well. I mean, do you think Wimbledon would give him a wild card? Because he's not actually, not his most favourite Grand Slam.
Successful Slam. Yeah, least successful Slam Wimbledon. And Wimbledon might kind of think, well, he's not a former champion. He's, it's his retirement year. He's getting wild cards basically everywhere else. So I certainly think the US Open, it makes sense being a former champion. But Wimbledon, I think it could be borderline 50-50. So we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, fantastic send-off for both Stan and Gael at Roland Garros today. But elsewhere, we do have players that are not planning on retiring this year, or at least we don't think so. You
Well,
never
you say
know.
that. I thought Casper Ruud was going to retire mid-match
Well,
against Safiullin earlier.
he had a bit of a roller coaster, didn't he? He is through. He did survive his opener, but I
I
mean, at
don't
one
know
point,
how.
no, I don't know how. I mean, 6-2, 7-6, 5-2, he was up. He had 5 match points. Then he lost 11 straight games and had a complete meltdown because of, the heat, and he just was dizzy, couldn't see the ball. Safiullin, who was up against, came back, won that fourth set, 6-love. We all thought, what on earth is
Mm.
going on here? But Casper Ruud, to give him credit, really, really difficult. We thought it was down and out, but he managed to win the fifth 6-2 and turned it around, got the win. And I mean, hopefully he'll be having a mighty good sort of rest and recovery period now, because he won't want to go through that again, will he, Joel?
No, I mean, he suffered heat stroke during the match. He is a player, I think, known not to cope well with hot weather. And I actually think he was actually very clever. I think, that fourth set, he
Let it
used it.
go.
He just decided to let it go and give him one shot in the fifth set. So I think it was quite a smart tactic of him to just use that time to recuperate as much as possible and give it his all in one final set. I do think though he was helped by Safiullin, because Safiullin, he took a very surprising medical timeout just before the end of the fourth set, I think it was, for hip troubles. He was getting a massage on the ground, and I was very surprised he took that, because he had the initiative. I thought, he was just going to run away with it, but as soon as he kind of called this and was on the floor, if I'm Casper Ruud sitting there not feeling 100% myself, I'm thinking, hang on, I've got more of a chance than perhaps I thought I did.
Yeah, and sometimes that's if you just need
That's all
that
you need.
fragment of belief, and you
Yeah.
think, oh, okay, the guy down the other end is also suffering with something, and I just need to can take this moment and regroup now. And yeah, he managed to do that, which is amazing. He could barely walk, yet he
Do you
managed to
think he
to get
should
the
have?
win.
Do you think he should have like taken it at that moment? I feel like if he needed it, just maybe try and do it off court more than anything. Don't show it to your opponent.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. Yeah, I suppose maybe they neither of them was thinking clearly in the awful heat. But I mean, it would have been a shame for the tournament if Casper had gone out today, I think, because
Mm.
I think some of us have got him in the final potentially, and he's one of the only other kind of contenders, really, I think. So it would have been real awful for him to have gone out in this way so early. But yeah, we'll have to see if hopefully the temperature can calm down a little bit and he can be a bit stronger for his next match. But yeah, I think it's not, I suppose it's not a great this kind of thing happening again and again if in
Mm.
real intense heat, like
You
he's
can
their
see why
susceptibility is
yeah.
not good long term, is
I
it?
mean,
He
you
needs
can
to.
see why the top players maybe are requesting the night sessions.
Yeah,
We've
it's
got
intense.
Sinner in the night session tomorrow, and perhaps he's going to just kind of continue asking for the night session, because you don't want to get yourself into these situations. I mean, Andrey Rublev, I just want to mention, did very well, I
Mm.
think, to take out Ignacio Buse in 4 sets. Buse served for the fourth set. Typically, this is a moment for Rublev. I think he usually combusts, and the fifth set was inevitably going to run away with him. But actually, he was full on focused, was able to break back Buse, and then just ran away with the match from there. I was very impressed with how he closed it out. I mean, Marat Safin was watching on, an enigma in himself. I mean, you just think all kind of tennis coaches sort of dress in, tennis clothing, look immaculate. I mean, Casper Ruud's box, I always think looks very immaculate. But Marat Safi's just out in a t-shirt and shades. He's got his chest hair out, just lounging back. I just think that partnership is just so fascinating. But yeah, very, very impressed by Rublev.
Yes, absolutely. And I mean, one player that we thought might be on for a bit of a decent run. Yuri Lehechka, 12th seed, obviously had some good results elsewhere, but he's out in the first round, losing to quite an old school player, Pablo Carreno Busta,
Yeah.
who is still going and won in straight sets.
Wow.
So yeah, a bit of a stalwart kind of
Mm.
Spanish journeyman, but well, I say journeyman, that's probably a bit harsh. PCB has been up in the top 10, I want to say, at one point, maybe just on the cusp. We'll have to fact check this, but now down at 89 in the world. But yeah, managed to get a win over the Siege today. And yeah, he's still got something. But also
Very good, Kim. Number 10 career high ranking.
oh, thank God for that. I also saw on Spanish news, Rafael Hodar won easily against Kovacevic, straight sets, but Hubert Hurkacz beat Jaume Munar.
Mm.
So yeah, a bit of a mixed bag for the Spaniards. But I also wanted to mention, Joel, Thanasi Kokkinakis, who has not played very much of late.
This is a great story.
Yeah, just his fourth match today in the last 17 months, but he did get the win over Terence Atman in 4 hours and 18 minutes. I didn't realize this, but I mean, Kokkinakis had shoulder surgery last year. I didn't quite realize that the surgery he had involved taking the Achilles tendon of someone who's passed away and inserting it into his shoulder area to connect his shoulder to his chest. So he's really been through it, and
Yeah.
to get the win today is quite, amazing for him.
Yeah, I mean he's a great player. It's always great to see him on the tennis court. We don't see him on the tennis court enough, and you do think these are the sorts of matches that he typically loses. He is. I feel like he's quite a fragile person. He's very injury prone. So yeah, for him to come through this was must have been such a great feeling in front of a French crowd. So yeah, very impressed. He needs to go and recuperate now because I'm wondering what sort of Kokkinakis we're going to get in his fifth match in the last 17 months.
Yeah, real tough. Yeah, I just hope he's not in too much pain after all of that. But yeah, amazing that he managed to get the win. But we're going to take a quick break now. Do join us in the second half where we'll be discussing all the women's action from day 2 at Roland Garros, including Elina Svitolina getting pushed all the way by Anna Bondar. And we'll be looking ahead briefly to day 3 as well with Sinner and Sabalenka in action. So do not go anywhere. Welcome back to the Tennis Weekly podcast. And it's time now to look back on the women's action from day 2 at Roland Garros. So, well, we had some pretty straightforward wins for a lot of the top seeds, it's fair to say. Iga Swiatek, for example, multiple time former champion here and the number 3 seed this year, getting the win over young Aussie Emerson Jones in 1 and 2 in just an hour exactly. I mean, Joel, this was pretty straightforward stuff, but the gulf between them in terms of like experience, pretty vast.
This was baptism of fire, I feel, for Emerson Jones. But I do like that she really relished the opportunity. I think watching it, she genuinely looked annoyed at times. She wasn't pushing Swiatek more. She did get a couple of games. I think she broke Swiatek's serve a couple of times as well. But it did get me sort of excited that maybe we're going to get a match on our hands, but Swiatek, very, very smooth operator. Of course, we know this in Paris, and was quick to kind of dispel any kind of suggestion of competitiveness in the match. But Emerson Jones maybe one to watch actually. I mean, this was her first tour level clay match, so I mean, it's not going to get more difficult than Iga Swiatek on Philippe Chatrier.
Yeah, and I think you'd love someone that you could maybe get a few, a win against, someone like, where you feel like you've got a good chance. But if that's not the case, then if I was Emerson Jones, I'd be thrilled to be out on a big court playing against
living the
an
experience.
icon. Exactly. And, she was in juniors this time last year, reaching the semi-finals of the French Open girls juniors. So, it's her first kind of proper season on the adult tour. So yeah, good luck to her. What a great experience. And I mean, Veronika Urjevec, who played Elena Rybakina, she kind of had a similar fate, 6-2, 6-2, Rybakina taking about an hour and a quarter to get through that one. Smooth sailing for Rybakina as well. What did you make of her on her opener?
Yeah, I mean, again, very comfortable. I think for a lot of these top players, the first week, the temperatures have been punishing at times. I mean, it hit 33 degrees today in Paris. So I really think the name of the game is get on and off court as quick as possible. And Rybakina and Swiatek did that. So I think they will be very happy because, not all the top players, were able to kind of get it done in very, very kind of quick fashion. And we don't know, who knows? Maybe that will have an impact on how they perform later in the tournament. So, yeah, for Rybakina and Swiatek, one hurdle has been jumped over, but there's definitely going to be tougher obstacles to come. I'm still hoping we get Swiatek Ostapenko in round 3. They've got to both win their round 2 matches for that to happen. But I think that could be the first proper test for Swiatek.
Ostapenko being, of course, Swiatek's bogey woman. And I mean, you mentioned other players having tougher moments today, and certainly Elina Svitolina had a really tough battle out against Anna Bondar. A real classic this one was, and Chris, experiencing it out at Roland Garros today. And I mean, Bondar and Svitolina, we mentioned this in the preview episode, they've played a lot, especially in the slams of late. This is their 4th meeting in the last 5 slams.
They keep delivering, Kim.
They do.
It's like the Medvedev teen rivalry of the WTA Tour.
Yeah, and Svitolina actually had a 3-match losing streak to Bondar. So Bondar was a bit of a bogey woman for her, but she was able to turn that around today, and she did get the better of Bondar. But she had to work hard for it, and it went down to the wire, didn't it, Joel?
Yeah, it did. I mean, Bondar was playing super aggressive at times. Svitolina was also on top at various times in the match. It was a setup where there were lots of momentum swings throughout. And I think towards the end, it was going to be who was going to hold their nerve the best. And, Svitolina really at the end in that deciding match tiebreak, she really turned on the style and kind of seized the initiative. And I think that was the big moment. I mean, she won 14 of the last 17 points. She was great under pressure. But yeah, still very surprising. I mean, we've been talking about Svitolina as a possible Grand Slam finalist. I think this will, give her a lot of confidence. As you mentioned, she has been a bogey woman to Svitolina recently, lost to her I think in Madrid earlier on in the clay swing. So I think this will help her, but certainly, yeah, a little bit of a contrast compared to the routine fashions that Rybakina and Swiatek went through.
Yeah, well, Svitolina, it did take a last set tiebreak, but she did get it done, spending almost 2.5 hours on the court. And obviously in those grueling conditions, who knows how much that will take out of her physically going forwards. But we do know she is probably one of the fittest players out there. And
she was a bit tentative. Yeah, she was a bit tentative. Like you kind of wonder, did she feel the pressure perhaps a little bit more, with the French
coming
Open.
Off the back of a Rome win as well.
Exactly. Like you wonder if that is, it might be impacting her. Also the rivalry as well. I mean, she did say afterwards that this matchup was one of her top 3 toughest round 1 matches at a Grand Slam. And you think, Bondar on clay, very aggressive, hot conditions as well, not easy at all. So, you can make the argument actually for Svitolina having a test early on could prove to set her up really well for this, this first week. But at the same time, I feel like she wouldn't have necessarily wanted it to go that deep in the third set.
No, but she did play some sort of real good pressure tennis towards the end, winning like 14 of the last 17 points. So that is a hallmark of a champion. So, she's obviously had to prove that earlier than she probably would have liked to have done. But sometimes I find that, Grand Slam champions, they have had that real tough, could have gone either way battle at some point early on. And it's run them in really good stead for the latter stages. And you can only lose a Grand Slam, can't you, in the first week? So she's through to fight another day. And we will see if she can have a smoother path from now on. I mean, one player that isn't going to be there to fight another day is, well, Olympic champion on these very courts, Qinwen Zheng, who, was in tears, sadly, after her first round match because she kind of got wiped off the court by Maja Trwalinska, Polish player.
Bageled.
6 love. That's not what we would have expected. I know Zheng's dropped out the top 100. She's not the player that she was. She's kind of trying to get back up there, but to lose to a Polish qualifier first round, we didn't have this on the cards, did we, Joel?
No, I mean, me and Chris, I think both had her making a sneaky quarter-final run here.
Mm.
She's had good form on the clay so far. She's taken some top players to three sets, I think, including Rybakina. So to see her go out in this fashion was very surprising. I mean, she was hitting a lot of unforced errors. She produced 23 unforced errors across 16 games today. 25% of the points played in the match equated to a Qinwen Zheng unforced error. So, yeah, not the greatest performance. And you can really tell perhaps that she's feeling the pressure that, she wants to be playing better tennis. There was an outpouring of emotion afterwards. She said, it was a very tough loss for me, but it may give me a fresh outlook and make me stronger. It's interesting. She also said that she's going to be prepared to play in more low level tournaments. And I think that is where Zheng needs to start. We've seen that work really well for other players coming back to the tour after extended absences. I think the biggest success story there has been Belinda Bencic. And I think that is a pathway that Zheng can follow. And perhaps, this French Open Grand Slam came just a little bit too soon for her.
Yeah, and it's, it can be quite humbling to go down, drop down to a level that you haven't had to play for a very long time, but it sometimes just needs to be done. You need that match practice.
She needs the match
that
practice.
Confidence from winning. Yeah. And yeah, she does need to start all over again. I mean, that's what it's going to feel like, but I'm sure it won't be literally starting out all over again, but she's got time on her side still. She's only 23. So she's got time. But she's also got a lot of points at Queens to defend. So she could fall further down the rankings should she not, have a good start to the grass court season.
Yeah, indeed. So, it'll be an interesting one to see, but certainly a player we hope can climb up the rankings. But it just shows that precariousness of if you do have a long layoff or, you do have kind of a stop-start nature and you don't, get the points you need, it can make things very difficult. And I think it can add pressure to the moment. And I think that can affect players in different way. And I think Zheng is feeling the pressure at the moment. She didn't play, the Australian Open either. Out in round one at Roland Garros, she feels like these are big opportunities to get ranking points, to get her ranking back up to where it should be. So, she's got a pretty big grass court season, I think, ahead of her. She showed last year that she can put decent runs together on that surface. So, we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, well, some other players who did make it through that have avoided Zheng's fate. Jasmine Paolini is through in straight. Amanda Anisimova is through. Chris said that she was looking very fit and focused out on court today, and that's a player we haven't. Well, she didn't really feature in our predictions, did she? Because we'd sort of not written her off completely, but she's just not had a great, time of it lately. So perhaps this is where she's most dangerous, coming back without much expectation.
Yeah, I mean, she didn't play in Rome. I think she was scheduled to play Ostapenko, but withdrew. But she reached the round of 16 in Miami earlier in the year, I guess. But yeah, she is. She's very much an unknown, I think, at this moment. But good win for her. We'll just have to see how she gets on.
Yeah, Mukova also through in straights and Ostapenko as well, gearing up for possible Swiatek in round 3. And on the British side, Katie Boulter did make it through as well. Went to a third, 6-4 in the third. She got the win over wildcard from America, Arobo, who I, new to me, new to Katie Boulter, I think. Very talented prospect, but Boulter managed to get the job done and is into the second round. So fortunate for the Brits with obviously Emma Raducanu having gone out yesterday. So we've got Fran Jones and Katie Boulter through. But Joel, I think let's have a look at the order of play for day 3 because got some, the number 1 seeds are out in action tomorrow. Chatrier opens with Aryna Sabalenka against Jessica Buse's Monero, and it will close with Jannik Sinner and Clément Tabour, the French wildcard. They're in the night session. And between that, we've got Tsitsipas and Muller, and then Coco Gauff, Taylor Townsend in that All-American battle. So that's our Chatrier lineup. Do you think Sinner asked for that night session, given the heat and the fact
I
he's got a Frenchman as well? Be like,
I
no brainer.
I would suspect so. Yeah, I think yeah, would not surprise me. I don't really see any issues there. I think Coco Gauff Taylor Townsend could be quite an interesting
Yeah.
matchup. I'm also looking at Osaka versus Lara Siegmund on Suzanne Lonlen. I feel like Siegmund could cause Osaka maybe a couple of problems. And we've got Lois Boisson versus
Mm.
Kalinskaya. We didn't really give Boisson any sort of chance in our Roland Garros preview episode.
Can she do it
So
again?
yeah, I'm just yeah, I'll be interested to see how that goes. Are there any matches you're interested in?
I think I'm going to start with Jovic Ayala actually on court
Mm,
14. I'm going to put that on the telly because that's the young guns. So very excited to see sort of who's going to come through that one. I suspect Jovic will, but I hope Ayala can, make it a close one. And then Cilic against Kouame. I mean, we spoke about the age difference between these
yeah.
two in our preview. Kouame, young French wildcard, future prospects against the veteran Marin Cilic. So I think I might flick between a bit of those two to start with, and then yeah, Goff Townsend I think, and we've also got Felix Auger Aliassime last on Long Lawn, so I think that'd be quite a nice evening one perhaps. And Boko also out last on court
Mm.
14. So yeah,
Surprised you didn't.
loads of
Surprised you
action
didn't say
tomorrow.
Alanda Luthe out on court 9, Kim. I know you love
Oh
a bit
yes,
of
there's
Alanda
just
Luthe.
too much, Joel, isn't there? Yes, he's up against a Bolivian qualifier, so I think it's quite a nice opener for Landa
Mm.
Luce. And
Mm.
obviously, I mentioned earlier that sadly, Jaume Munar is out, so got to, some Spaniards in,
Someone's
some
got to,
Spaniards
yeah.
out, so we've got to keep
Channel
supporting.
Channel Carreño Buster Energy,
Yeah.
I think is the name of the game
And
for
Hodar energy
Landaluce
as
and
well.
Hodar
Yes,
leading the way exactly.
yes.
But we're going to wrap up our Roland Garros Day 2 catch up here at Tennis Weekly HQ. We hope you've enjoyed the ride with us. Remember to subscribe so you don't miss a moment of action from Paris, where we are producing daily episodes across the fortnight. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and all your favorite podcasting platforms out there. And if you love what you're hearing, be sure to leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, as well as hit that like and subscribe button on YouTube.
And you can stay connected with us on social media. We are on pretty much all the platforms. We're on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, X, and we are all at Tennis Weekly Pod. As the handle on all of those. So if you'd also like to get in touch via email, you can do so, tennisweeklypod@gmail.com. And you can also visit our lovely website, tennisweekly.co.uk.
And we will be back on Tuesday for our Roland Garros Day 3 catch up. But until then, it's goodbye from Kim.
Goodbye.
And it's goodbye from me. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time on Tennis Weekly.